For the vast majority of human history, the setting of the sun dictated a hard boundary on daily life. As daylight faded, so too did the ability to work, travel, and socialize safely. The story of human progress is intricately bound to our rebellion against this solar cycle. By mastering artificial illumination, humanity learned to colonize the night. This review traces the remarkable chronological evolution of artificial light, moving from the primal glow of prehistoric campfires to the highly engineered, biologically active smart lighting systems of the modern digital era. By examining the technological breakthroughs, the shifting materials, and the profound socio-economic impacts of each advancement, we can understand how the quest for light has fundamentally reshaped human civilization.
The genesis of artificial illumination rests on the mastery of fire, a technological milestone that separated early hominids from all other primate species. While some animals, such as savanna chimpanzees, display a predictive understanding of how natural wildfire spread, humans alone transitioned to the deliberate ignition, control, and maintenance of fire. The earliest archaeological clues of fire use date back roughly 1.5 million years to sites like Kubifora in Kenya, where heat-fractured stones and reddened sediments suggest opportunistic use of natural flames. However, the definitive shift to active fire-making emerged much later. Unambiguous evidence, such as iron pyrite used to strike sparks against flint, has been discovered at Neanderthal sites in eastern England dating back 400,000 years. Microscopic traces of wood ash in South Africa's Wonderwork cave indicate that human ancestors were intentionally maintaining fires even a million years ago.
The socio-economic and evolutionary impacts of controlled fire were transformative. Before fire, the daylight hours were consumed entirely by the relentless demands of survival, such as foraging and rudimentary toolmaking. The campfire introduced a completely novel third phase to the human daily cycle, a period of extended wakefulness that occurred under artificial light. Because the flickering glow of a hearth was insufficient for intricate physical labor, this newly acquired time was dedicated almost entirely to socialization. Maintaining a fire required significant cooperation, which fostered communal bonding and catalyzed the development of complex vocal communication. Around the hearth, the tradition of storytelling was born, serving as the prehistoric equivalent of mass media and rapidly accelerating human cognitive and cultural evolution. As early humans expanded their territories and sought refuge in deep cave systems, the geographic limitations of the static campfire became apparent. Humanity needed mobile light. During the Upper Paleolithic period, early humans transitioned from simple burning branches to the first primitive lamps. These early devices were strictly utilitarian, utilizing naturally occurring depressions in stones or hollowed-out oyster and conch shells. Animal fat served as the fuel reservoir, while dried moss or plant fibers acted as crude capillary wicks. This portable light was revolutionary. The prehistoric artists who painted the breathtaking murals deep within the caverns of Font de Gaume relied entirely on the controlled glow of these rudimentary fat-burning lamps. By the advent of the Bronze Age, around the 16th century BCE, lighting underwent its first true manufacturing revolution. The transition from stone and shell to purpose-built clay lamps marked a significant leap in design. Early open saucers quickly evolved into cocked hat lamps, featuring pinched rims that held the wick securely in place and helped manage smoke. During classical antiquity, particularly in ancient Greece and Rome, this craft evolved into an early form of mass production. The Greeks perfected wheel-made terracotta lamps, applying specialized clay slips to prevent porous leakage, and exported them across the Mediterranean. The primary fuel for this era was olive oil, an abundant agricultural staple of the region. In ancient Rome, farmers efficiently repurposed a mulch-like byproduct of olive oil extraction, known as amurca, as a highly accessible lamp fuel. Woven plant fibers, such as linen and papyrus, were used as wicks.
The mass availability of the terracotta oil lamp profoundly altered domestic life, allowing households to reliably extend their productive hours into the evening. Beyond simple utility, these lamps gained immense cultural and sacred significance, frequently serving as votive offerings in religious ceremonies and accompanying the deceased into burial chambers.
Following the collapse of the Roman Empire and its vast trade networks, lighting technology entered a prolonged era of stagnation. During the Middle Ages, the liquid oil reservoirs of antiquity were largely replaced by solid fats, ushering in the era of the candle. However, artificial light remained a labor-intensive and expensive commodity, resulting in a stark socioeconomic divide defined entirely by the quality of a household's illumination.
For the vast majority of the European peasantry, the standard source of light was the tallow candle. Tallow was rendered from the suet of cattle, sheep, and goats, essentially the leftover kitchen fats saved specifically for illumination. Tallow was a highly flawed illuminant. It burned rapidly, emitted a foul, acrid odor, and produced immense amounts of black, greasy smoke. Furthermore, the wicks in tallow candles required constant manual trimming. If left untended, the wick would droop and extinguish the flame in a pool of its own melting fat. By the 13th century, candle making had become a recognized guild craft, with chandlers traveling from house to house to process saved fats into crude candles.
In sharp contrast, the nobility and the church enjoyed the luxury of beeswax candles, which first appeared in Britain during the medieval period. Beeswax burned with a steady, brilliantly clean flame and emitted a pleasant, sweet aroma. Because the harvesting and processing of beeswax was incredibly labor-intensive, it was prohibitively expensive for anyone outside the upper echelons of society. Consequently, the beeswax candle became a powerful symbol of wealth, divine purity, and societal status.
For the absolute lowest classes of society, even crude tallow candles were an unaffordable luxury. These populations relied on the rushlight, the most primitive and economical lighting alternative of the era. To create a rushlight, individuals stripped the outer bark from a common meadow rush, leaving the inner pith intact. This pith was then repeatedly drawn through melted, discarded animal grease. Held at an angle in specialized iron pincers, the rushlight provided a weak, sputtering flame that lasted only a few minutes before requiring replacement.
The underlying reason for this millennium of stagnation was a failure to overcome the thermodynamic limitations of open flame combustion. Both ancient oil lamps and medieval candles relied on a solid wick drawing organic fuel into an open flame. In these systems, atmospheric oxygen only interacted with the exterior surface of the flame. This inadequate oxygenation resulted in incomplete combustion, causing the flame to flicker, produce poor illumination, and emit unburned carbon particles as heavy smoke and soot. Until the fluid dynamics of airflow and combustion could be mastered, humanity remained trapped in an age of dim, smoky light.
The long stagnation of lighting technology was abruptly shattered in 1780 by the Genevan physicist and chemist Amy Argand. Applying his knowledge of chemistry and distillation, Argand deduced that the fatal flaw in existing lamps was oxygen starvation. To remedy this, he abandoned the traditional solid wick, replacing it with a broad, flat ribbon of cotton tightly folded into a hollow, cylindrical tube. This hollow wick was a scientific revelation. By opening the center of the wick, air could be drawn up through the interior of the flame as well as around its exterior perimeter. This double air supply exponentially increased the surface area exposed to oxygen, facilitating near complete combustion of the lamp oil. To amplify this effect, Argand added a second vital component, a cylindrical glass chimney placed securely over the burner. The heat of the flame created a powerful convective updraft within the glass cylinder, actively pulling oxygen into the combustion zone much like a miniature factory smokestack. The resulting Argand lamp produced a light up to 10 times brighter than any previous oil lamp. It burned cleanly,
entirely eliminating the smoke and acrid odors that had plagued interior lighting for centuries, and quickly became a staple in affluent homes across the globe.
The invention of the Argand lamp, coupled with rapid industrialization, created an unprecedented global demand for high-quality lighting fuels. This demand precipitated the rise of the commercial whaling industry, largely dominated by the American fleet operating out of ports like New Bedford. The absolute prize of this era was spermaceti, a unique liquid wax extracted from the head cavities of sperm whales. Unlike traditional animal tallows, spermaceti burned with a remarkably clean, bright, and odorless flame. It became the lifeblood of 19th century infrastructure, utilized to illuminate lighthouses, railway headlights, and the sprawling factory floors of the early Industrial Revolution. The whaling industry generated immense wealth and operated as the direct precursor to the modern global energy sector.
However, whale oil was a finite and ecologically devastating resource. The intense hunting pressure drove many whale species to the brink of extinction, requiring longer, more dangerous voyages that drove the price of spermaceti to exorbitant heights. By the 1850s, the extreme cost forced consumers to pivot toward alternatives like lard oil and vegetable derivatives. The final blow to the whaling illumination industry came with the discovery of subterranean petroleum and the subsequent invention of the kerosene lamp by Abraham Gessner. Kerosene offered a clean, bright light that was vastly cheaper to extract and refine than whale oil. This critical transition from an organic energy regime to a mineral fossil fuel regime effectively saved global whale populations from eradication while laying the groundwork for the modern petroleum industry.
Simultaneous to the whale oil boom, a parallel revolution was unfolding in the realm of urban infrastructure, the advent of coal gas lighting. In the 1790s, Scottish engineer William Murdoch discovered that heating coal in a sealed, oxygen-deprived container produced a highly flammable, complex gas comprised of methane, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen. After successfully piping this gas into his own home to produce brilliant light, the technology rapidly scaled up. By 1807, the first public gas streetlights were installed along London's Pall Mall, and the technology quickly proliferated across European urban centers.
The socio-economic impacts of gaslighting were deeply profound. In metropolitan areas like Paris, gaslight effectively abolished the concept of a hostile, impenetrable night, replacing dark, dangerous alleys with illuminated thoroughfares. Crime rates plummeted as visibility increased, and citizens felt a new sense of fearlessness. Paris fully embraced the technology, fostering a vibrant, extended nightlife where storefronts glowed and cafes remained open late into the evening, cementing its iconic reputation as the City of Light.
Yet, this urban illumination carried a dark underside. In the industrial sector, the cheap and brilliant light of coal gas allowed factory owners to completely decouple human labor from the natural solar cycle. Production in textile mills could now begin long before dawn and continue deep into the night, subjecting men, women, and children to grueling 14-hour night shifts. Furthermore, gas production was highly toxic, regularly exposing the laborers working in the gas plants to poisonous emissions like carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide.
As the 19th century progressed, the dangers, smells, and infrastructural limitations of combustible fuels spurred the scientific pursuit of electric light. The earliest practical manifestation of this dream was the carbon arc lamp, first demonstrated by British chemist Sir Humphrey Davy in the opening decade of the 1800s. By applying a high voltage across two charcoal electrodes and drawing them slightly apart, Davy forced an electrical current to jump the air gap. This ionized the surrounding gas and created a blindingly bright plasma arc.
When commercial dynamos made electricity generation affordable in the 1870s, arc lamps were rapidly deployed across the industrialized world. Producing between 1,500 and 6,000 candle power, their piercing intensity was utilized to illuminate immense public spaces, railway stations, and lighthouses, cutting through fog and darkness with ease. However, arc lamps were entirely unsuitable for domestic indoor use. The arc generated immense heat, reaching up to 4,000 degrees Celsius, emitted noxious fumes as the carbon electrodes vaporized, and required complex mechanical regulators to constantly adjust the distance between the rapidly degrading carbon rods.
The quest to bring soft, manageable electric light into the domestic home culminated in the intense race to perfect the incandescent light bulb. The physical principle was well understood, passing an electrical current through a high-resistance filament until it glowed white-hot. The primary engineering hurdle, however, was preventing the filament from instantly combusting upon contact with oxygen. British chemist Joseph Swan tackled this issue in the late 1870s by utilizing a carbonized paper filament placed within an evacuated glass bulb. Swan successfully demonstrated a working prototype and secured a British patent in 1878. However, the vacuum pumps available to Swan were inadequate. Residual oxygen left within the bulb caused his carbon filaments to rapidly disintegrate, limiting the bulb's lifespan to a mere 13 hours and causing the interior glass to quickly blacken with soot.
Simultaneously in the United States, Thomas Edison approached the problem with vast financial resources and a keen focus on commercial viability. Edison recognized that commercial success required not just a bulb, but a holistic system of electrical distribution. In 1879, Edison achieved his breakthrough by utilizing a vastly superior vacuum pump to entirely evacuate the oxygen from the bulb, pairing it with a highly resilient carbonized bamboo filament. This combination extended the bulb's lifespan to over 1,200 hours, making it the first truly practical incandescent light for public consumption. While Swan sued Edison for patent infringement in the UK courts, ultimately forcing the creation of the joint Ediswan manufacturing company, it was Edison's comprehensive engineering of the vacuum and his vision for power distribution that ignited the global electrical revolution.
The invention of the practical incandescent bulb immediately triggered a massive, high-stakes infrastructural battle known as the War of the Currents. Thomas Edison, having established the first investor-owned electric utility in 1882, championed a direct current, or DC, power grid. However, DC power suffered from severe resistance loss over long distances, which meant that costly power plants had to be built in almost every neighborhood to maintain voltage.
In 1886, entrepreneur George Westinghouse, backed by the brilliant theoretical patents of Nikola Tesla, introduced an alternating current system. The supreme technological advantage of AC was its compatibility with electrical transformers. This allowed electricity to be stepped up to incredibly high voltages for efficient, lossless transmission over long distances, and then safely stepped down to lower voltages for indoor domestic lighting. Fearing the loss of his monopoly, Edison waged a vicious and highly publicized smear campaign against AC, utilizing animal electrocutions and consulting on the invention of the electric chair to brand alternating current as the death current.
Ultimately, physics and economics prevailed over public relations. Westinghouse secured the monumental contract to illuminate the 1893 Chicago World's Fair using Tesla's AC system for $399,000, drastically underbidding Edison's General Electric, which had bid $554,000. Shortly thereafter, the AC system was selected to harness the massive hydroelectric power of Niagara Falls. This victory cemented alternating current as the foundational infrastructure of the modern global economy, completely transforming society by allowing humanity to cleanly transmit vast amounts of energy across continents.
While the incandescent bulb revolutionized domestic lighting, its reliance on thermal incandescence made it incredibly inefficient. The vast majority of the electrical energy consumed by a traditional bulb is lost as ambient heat rather than visible light. As the 20th century demanded more efficient illumination for vast commercial spaces, the lighting industry shifted toward gas discharge technology, leading to the commercialization of the fluorescent lamp in the late 1930s.
The mechanism of a fluorescent tube marks a brilliant departure from simple thermal heating. An electrical current is passed through a low-pressure gas mixture of argon and mercury vapor housed within a sealed glass tube.
This electrical excitation causes the gas to emit invisible UV light. The interior of the glass tube is coated with specialized chemical phosphors. When the invisible UV photons strike this coating, the phosphors fluoresce, re-emitting the energy outward as visible white light.
Upon its commercial introduction, fluorescent lighting offered massive advantages over incandescent bulbs. They lasted significantly longer, operated at much cooler temperatures, and produced a soft, diffused light that drastically reduced harsh shadows. The sheer energy efficiency of fluorescent tubes made them the absolute standard for industrial settings, leading to their rapid adoption in American war plants during World War II, and later becoming the ubiquitous lighting source in offices and retail spaces globally. Despite their success, early fluorescent technology had notable drawbacks, including a high-frequency flicker that caused eye strain and headaches for some individuals, and a tendency to cast an unflattering greenish hue under certain camera optics.
For expansive outdoor environments requiring intense lumen output, such as highways, parking lots, and sports stadiums, engineers developed high-intensity discharge (HID) lamps. Operating on a physics principle similar to fluorescent lights, HID lamps emit light by vaporizing metallic salts within an incredibly hot electric arc chamber.
The earliest commercial iteration was the mercury vapor lamp, developed by Peter Cooper Hewitt in 1901. While highly efficient, it produced a visually harsh, unappealing blue-green light. This was later followed by the high-pressure sodium HPS lamp, which operates by ionizing xenon gas to vaporize a sodium-mercury amalgam. HPS lamps boast an incredible efficacy of up to 150 lumens per watt, but their sodium emission produces a deeply monochromatic orange-amber glow with an abysmal color rendering index, CRI. While favored by municipal astronomers for their ability to be easily filtered out of telescope lenses to reduce light pollution, their poor aesthetic quality made it difficult for pedestrians to distinguish the color of cars or clothing at night. In the 1960s, the development of the metal halide lamp finally resolved the color rendering issue of HID technology. Based on early experiments by Charles P. Steinmetz, modern metal halide lamps incorporate additional halide salts, such as sodium iodide and scandium iodide, within a fused quartz or ceramic arc tube. As these metals ionize in the intense heat of the arc, they add rich reds and oranges to the standard mercury spectrum, resulting in an intense, highly efficient white light that mimics natural daylight. This incredible color accuracy and power made metal halide the fastest growing segment of the lighting industry, establishing it as the standard for modern sports stadiums, wide area overhead retail lighting, and high-end automotive headlights.
In the mid-20th century, the traditional incandescent bulb received its final and most significant technological upgrade with the invention of the halogen lamp. Patented in 1956, the halogen lamp sought to solve the primary failure point of traditional incandescents, the slow evaporation of the tungsten filament, which progressively blackened the glass bulb and eventually caused the filament wire to snap. Engineers discovered a brilliant chemical workaround. By encasing the tungsten filament in a much smaller, heat-resistant quartz glass envelope and filling it with an inert gas mixed with a halogen, typically iodine or bromine, a phenomenon known as the halogen cycle is initiated. As the tungsten evaporates from the incredibly hot filament, it chemically binds with the halogen gas in the bulb. When this new compound circulates back near the intense heat of the filament, the chemical bond breaks, and the tungsten is redeposited directly back onto the filament wire. This continuous, self-regenerating cycle prevents the inside of the bulb from blackening and significantly extends its operational lifespan. Furthermore, because the halogen cycle actively protects the filament from degradation, the tungsten can be driven to much higher operating temperatures, producing a brilliantly intense, crisp white light from a remarkably compact form factor. Halogen bulbs quickly dominated applications requiring intense, focused illumination in limited spaces, such as automotive headlights, fiber optic microscopy, and high-end residential floodlighting.
The late 20th and early 21st centuries witnessed the most profound paradigm shift in the history of illumination: the transition from thermal and gas discharge lighting to solid-state semiconductors.
In 1962, Nick Holonyak Jr. successfully invented the first visible spectrum light-emitting diode, LED, which emitted a distinct red light. LEDs operate entirely on quantum mechanical principles. An electrical current is passed through layered semiconductor materials, known as a p-n junction, driving extra electrons from an n-doped layer to fill holes in a p-doped layer. As the electrons cross this band gap, they release energy directly as photons, effectively eliminating the massive heat waste that plagued incandescent filaments.
While red and green LEDs became ubiquitous as electronic indicator lights by the 1970s, the lighting industry faced a seemingly insurmountable material science hurdle: the creation of a high-brightness blue LED. Because white light can only be synthesized by combining red, green, and blue light, or by exciting specialized phosphors with blue light, the absence of a blue LED made solid-state room lighting physically impossible. For 3 decades, this green gap confounded the world's top researchers, with many openly declaring that a functional blue LED would be impossible to achieve before the end of the 20th century. This monumental breakthrough was finally achieved in the early 1990s by Japanese researchers Isamu Akasaki, Hiroshi Amano, and Shuji Nakamura. Defying conventional scientific wisdom, they focused their efforts on gallium nitride, GaN, a notoriously difficult material to crystallize. Through decades of relentless trial and error, they successfully achieved the high-quality single crystallization and p-type doping of GN, unlocking the bright blue LED. This achievement, which earned the trio the 2014 Nobel Prize in Physics, fundamentally transformed global illumination. Today, by coating these high-energy blue LEDs with specialized yellow phosphor compounds, the blue photons are seamlessly converted into a broad spectrum of complementary colors, yielding the bright, highly efficient white light we use daily. The commercialization of the white LED precipitated a mass extinction of legacy lighting formats. Because LEDs convert electricity directly into light particles rather than ambient heat, they consume up to 90% less energy than incandescents and boast astonishing lifespans exceeding 50,000 hours. The incredibly compact, durable nature of these solid-state diodes revolutionized modern industrial design. It allowed for the creation of ultra-thin television screens, sophisticated automotive lighting matrices that adapt to road conditions, and the microscopic, high-resolution displays found in our smartphones. Building upon the solid-state revolution, researchers pioneered organic light-emitting diodes, or OLEDs. First developed in 1987 by Ching Tang and Stephen Van Slyke at the Eastman Kodak Company, OLEDs replaced the hard, inorganic crystalline structure of standard LEDs with thin films of organic, carbon-based electroluminescent compounds. Situated between 2 transparent electrodes, these organic films emit a soft, uniform, and highly diffuse light across their entire surface area, without the need for bulky backlights or harsh diffusers. The structural architecture of OLEDs enables unprecedented physical form factors. OLED panels can be manufactured to be ultra-thin, often less than a millimeter thick, highly flexible, and even entirely transparent. This material flexibility has allowed for the creation of bendable smartphone screens, curved televisions, and automotive taillights that integrate seamlessly into complex, curved exterior surfaces. However, the broader proliferation of OLED architectural lighting is currently hindered by high manufacturing costs, lower overall lumen efficacy compared to inorganic LEDs, and an extreme susceptibility to moisture contamination, requiring costly and complex encapsulation processes.
As lighting technology fully transitioned to digital semiconductors, it inevitably merged with the broader infrastructure of computing and networking. The modern era is increasingly defined by the integration of LED arrays into the Internet of Things, or IoT. In modern smart cities, intelligent streetlights equipped with environmental sensors dynamically adjust their lumen output based on real-time pedestrian traffic and natural daylight exposure, drastically reducing municipal energy footprints while seamlessly maintaining urban safety. Concurrently, technologies like light fidelity, or Li-Fi, utilize the high-speed, imperceptible modulation of visible LED light to transmit secure wireless data streams at speeds surpassing traditional radio frequency Wi-Fi. This proves especially critical in environments sensitive to electromagnetic interference, such as hospitals, airplane cabins, and secure industrial zones.
Perhaps the most profound development in the digital lighting era is the advent of human-centric lighting, HCL. For centuries, artificial light was engineered solely to optimize visual acuity in the dark. However, recent advances in chronobiology reveal that artificial light profoundly influences the human neuroendocrine system, specifically dictating the production of melatonin, the critical hormone responsible for regulating our daily circadian rhythm. Standard, static artificial lighting, particularly the heavy blue wavelength emissions of early LEDs and digital screens, chronically suppresses melatonin. This unnatural exposure leads to circadian misalignment, chronic sleep deprivation, and diminished cognitive performance.
Human-centric lighting utilizes advanced semiconductor spectrum engineering to dynamically color-tune indoor environments, mimicking the biological cues of the natural solar cycle. Innovations such as Samsung's LM302N LED packages represent the absolute vanguard of this bio-lighting intersection. In active environments like schools, offices, and factories, the day spectrum artificially increases the proportion of low-energy cyan light to deliberately suppress melatonin production by up to 18%. This maximizes physiological alertness, focus, and productivity during working hours without utilizing harmful UV wavelengths. Conversely, in restorative spaces, such as homes, hotels, and hospital recovery wards, the night spectrum actively filters out circadian-disrupting blue light. This allows human melatonin levels to remain naturally elevated by 5% compared to conventional lighting, promoting physical relaxation and inducing deep, restorative sleep.
By aligning solid-state illumination with human endocrinology, the modern lighting industry has closed a profound evolutionary loop. Where prehistoric fire artificially extended the day to forge early human society, and the industrial gaslight violently decoupled laborers from the natural solar cycle, the digital semiconductor is now being meticulously engineered to reintegrate humanity with its natural biological rhythms. From hollowed-out stones to quantum semiconductors, the history of artificial light is the ultimate reflection of human ingenuity, forever illuminating our path out of the darkness.